every 5 minutes he's just like, sometimes I just want to do some coke with my wife. It's so funny. I love it, dude.
Yeah, and he
well, he just kept saying
obviously, he's like so obviously like a libertarian psyop. Like every single the way that he frames it is like, it's great for work-life balance. And it's like, well, no shit, heroin's gonna make work better. That's not what's really up for debate here. But like, he seems totally lost to the fact that him using heroin as a tenured professor at an Ivy is different than some working schmo making 30 grand a year getting hooked on opiates.
Yeah.
Oh, like construction's crazy, dude. Like I'm in construction, and when you'll just be doing like 10 to 12-hour shifts, you'll just see a guy like digging with like an excavator with sunglasses on at 2 a.m. and you're like, well, that's probably not good. And the guy's just like, I'm loving it, man. It's great. It's like, come on, Carl Hart, why don't you go run some heavy machinery, Carl?
Yeah. I really think his goal, I mean, I would not be surprised. I'm like so fucking psyoped at this point. Like, I just see conspiracies everywhere. And it seems kind of like, of course.
Yeah.
And it seems like he'd be very useful. I think his ultimate goal is to give Big Pharma cover to frame drug addiction back as an issue of personal failure and not as an issue of systemic rot.
Because they're like, here's this charming dude that's like killing it, But even you could tell he's coming to it. He's like, what's this, heroin? And he's going through the same thing everyone else. Like,
he hasn't finished the experiment yet. That's the other thing. That's the other thing I don't like. If you trust science, right? Wait till that conclusion of the experiment. Like, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
So
he's like, I've been doing this 2.5 years. It's going great.
I think we said on System of Systems that he's going to go on like a book tour and run out of junk. And then just gets sick, and he's gonna be like, "Oh shit! I guess this is more of a problem than I thought."
Carl Hart stole my car radio the other day. Jesus, exactly.
From the 5 to the 6, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. I need food for the kids, money for the rent. Fuck a lockdown, baby, I can't do that shit. And I don't never vote, cause I'm fucking broke. And either way, I know the police ain't gon' leave me alone. On a plane by to visit Glen and Crypto told me I should bring the Glock with me. So I packed up my piece and I'm sliding. Cause we might get caught up in a riot. Middle finger Trump, middle finger Biden. Fuck a left, fuck a right, is you riding? Know you love to see it, dudes rocking. Ain't no politics, baby, we just talking. From the birds to the bricks, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. Who you with?
Well, okay, let's introduce you. We have Adam Lehrer here. You were here with Ben last time, just solo this time, but System of Systems. Since then, you started a Substack, correct?
Yeah, Safety Propaganda.
Hell yeah.
What's the meaning behind that name, too? I was wondering.
It's from a piece of text from J.G. Ballard's Crash. Ballard's probably one of my bigger literary influences.
J.G. Ballard.
But
okay.
And then and Cronenberg made Crash into a movie in 96. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the line Safety Propaganda stuck with me during COVID era, especially just because of the idea that like lockdown restrictions and all these things, it's like easier to sell people propaganda under the guises of them keeping safe. It's no different than like how 9/11 was used to initiate the Patriot Act. I mean, it's like massive changes in political economy and infringements upon civil liberties are always kind of sold under the guise that they'll make you safer somehow. And since people are just like, and liberals too, are just like in a permanent state of cucked cowardice, that they just kind of eat that shit hook, line, and center. So the line, I had like 12 different titles that I wanted to use. And then that was the one that people kept telling me was like the one that I should go with. And I guess I agreed. But the project itself is basically, I'm going to eventually turn it into a magazine, like grow it into like a biennial or kind of magazine. But I wanted to just like have a space where I could because I'm at the point now where I have like a pretty sizable audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know I'm smarter than most of the people who I was working with as as editors, and that people kind of go to me for a specific thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like create a space where I could publish people that I thought were saying interesting things and probably couldn't get their stuff published elsewhere.
And I'm forgetting the guy's name, but because I'm still new to the Substack model, but the vaccination article, the vaccine skepticism, that you
degree
published,
studies.
First off, I thought it was you. I was like, whoa,
yeah, I always think
based.
it's
I was like, oh hell yeah, Adam. Like, and then I did. It was degree studies. That's correct. And that's another guy I think we're gonna have on the show pretty soon, I believe.
Yeah, he's sharp. Yeah,
really good article. So you're doing everything on there. It doesn't like because I thought it was just gonna be like an art Substack, but then you're talking about Fauci in there, you're talking about lockdowns, talking about other stuff that to me, who I'm not an art guy at all, but that's something that could usher me into that side of the world perfectly, because you tie it into everything else. It's not just look how much art I know, look
right.
Yeah,
well, or go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that, like, same thing. I'm like, I'm into music and stuff. I've never been like a crazy visual art guy. I guess I'm trying to get more into it. But I knew that, going to like university, and seeing like the stuff you talk about the art world and about these cultures that we live in, how they're just all total bullshit and like a facade for. So, I mean, seeing like a visual artist like talk about that shit rather than being in it and entrenched in it, I was like, oh, this guy's got something to say. That's kind of what clued me into, because there's so few people critiquing it from the inside, and it's so obvious, Yeah. And I don't know, just that whole matrix of like, the art world and like neolib universities and, the whole thing all conglom together, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. What it is like for a long time, both as an artist and then later as a writer, I was just kind of trying to have a career, like going along to get along.
Yeah.
And sort of like biting my tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I still ended up getting fucked. And, so at that point, it just became so obvious that to like take half measures and only say half of what you think is so fucking pointless, because you still end up walking on eggshells.
Right.
And since I've like, I guess it's been like the last year and a half that I've had this sort of built this thing of mine, and so many people that I know in the art world that I know are smart and that I know like hate the shit that they're surrounded by.
Yeah,
I just wanted to like give them a mechanism from which they could actually say it. And now it's like I said this to my friend yesterday. I was at my pals own a gallery in Brooklyn, and they're all on a pretty similar wavelength as me, but to varying degrees. And I was talking to my friend Raph about it, and he was just like telling me that he had heard these like bigger industry people out at a dinner one night talking shit about me, calling me like a reactionary or whatever. But he said he could tell from their tone that he knew on some level that the content that I was putting out there was the best content coming out, like period. Yeah. And the shit that people are talking about the most. So even the people that are like my sort of natural enemies have kind of started paying attention and have had to give up respect to, like, I have like 60-year-old shit libs like Walter Robinson, like old art critics who no one cares about anymore, but still have lots of clout, like trolling me on my Instagram and Twitter accounts, because they just know it's like there's like a shift happening. Yeah, and there's like all these like, I don't know if you guys read the interview with my pal, the painter Alexander Hard.
A little bit, yeah. I read it on the email part of it. Yeah.
I mean, it's like one of the fucking most based artist interviews like I've ever read in my life. Like I couldn't believe how forthright he was in answering those statements. And it's like,
Mhm.
the more that shit happens, all of a sudden the discourse becomes kind of more heated again.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope things will start to get more interesting again.
I hope so too. And that's weird. I know I said what the format would be, but let's get into the Substack stuff. Because originally you came on here to talk about some Substack stuff. Then we have some whole other stuff to talk about. That just came up today. But
Yeah.
what what's weird about the Substack model? First off, I love it. I love it. A couple of my buddies, I'm kind of in the sports world on Twitter for football, and a lot of these guys are writing for like really archaic, ancient blogs. Their numbers are capped. Like it's the same people that are gonna watch it as 5 years ago. Nothing more, no growth, and they're kind of censored, and they're only making just a little bit per article. But I have some guys who analyze football film, and I just told them, I'm like, start a Substack. And it's because of like, when I saw you, I'm like, just start one, see what happens. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And now they're in love with it. You know what I mean? It's truly good. Now, the downside of this is when you look at Glenn Greenwald's timeline. When you look at Glenn Greenwald's timeline, and we're Greenwald stands, Adam. I think you like Glenn Greenwald too.
Of course.
Yeah. And he, like, I just saw that someone the other day, I don't remember the journalist that said it, but they were like, and this blogger, Glenn Greenwald, he became a blogger. Now,
That's
okay.
so obvious psyop though.
Yes.
Not only that, like it's crazy. Like, yeah, they called him a blogger, but and he's just so good because he is too online, like, aren't we all, but like he does just own the fuck out of people. It's so funny because he was it The Guardian, right? Or I think it was The Guardian, because Glenn Greenwald technically won his Pulitzer Prize with The Guardian for the Snowden story, I think.
But,
right?
Yeah.
So this guy in The Guardian, who like hasn't done shit, is calling him like an ineffective blogger, calling the guy that he won their only Pulitzer Prize in 200 years. They've been going for 200 years, and he comes along, helps them win a Pulitzer Prize with one of the biggest stories of this century, right? And then they're calling him a blogger, like, a couple years later, right? Or however many, it's bullshit. And it's they're the most like scared class of PMCs, I feel. They're the weirdest. It's the weirdest thing. These modern journalists are
well, think of how ashamed they must be to like work at the fucking, like, they can call him a blogger all he wants. The fact remains that the last remaining, and I'm not a journalist per se, I'm more like a surrealist journalist, if it was anything, but I mean, like, Michael Tracy, Greenwald, there's only like a few like actual journalists left.
What do you think about Lee Fang? What do you think about Lee Fang while we're on that topic?
Lee Fang is dope. I mean, he has like, I probably disagree with him on a couple things, but he gets it. But he's like, people like Lee and Greenwald and Tracy, these kind of like 90s-ish Gen X left liberals that are like those are sort of bourgeois. Like those are like noble bourgeois. Like
right.
They can be counted on to defend and protect the rights that the bourgeoisies of the late 19th century actually did die for. Like we hate our bourgeoisie now because they're terrible. But the fact remains that the French Revolution was fought by aristocrats who bled and died for the right to be able to speech, to assemble. So it's not like, and that's why you have people now like Greenwald and Lee Fang and these types. They're not like pushing for like I don't think these guys are really advocating for a push towards socialism in any meaningful way. But you can't have that struggle unless you have these sort of bedrock defenders of the principles that have already been won, which is why like they are so much easier. Like we can read their stuff and it makes so much more sense and it's so much more refreshing than like 95% of the people who have like anarchist, socialist, feminista, Marxista in their fucking profiles who are almost unanimously like just libs, reactionary libs. It's good to have people like that. Like Glenn Greenwald sees things very clearly. He understands how propaganda works, and he's been probably better than any journalist in helping us understand how these mechanisms function.
Yeah. And seeing fascism. Like I'm saying, like how many American journalists have seen fascism? And I only want you to answer this because there are some people that would be like, well, somebody, the Trump and the QAnon and all that. It's like, no. That guy has seen fascism. So when I see these people freaking out, and some of these people, it's still like some of these big account, like leftoid accounts. When I first came to like the left part of Twitter because of Bernie, I'm like, okay, I want Bernie to win. You want Bernie to win. This should be cool. And some of these people are in there and they're like trying to own Greenwald, who's like arguing with a shit lib that they make fun of on Chapo. I'm like, what is
side?
Yeah. I'm like, so wait, so that you made fun of, it's like your parents almost, where you're like, look, like I'm gonna make fun of my parents' political beliefs, but if I see somebody else doing it, I gotta, step in. And I'm like, what is this? Like, so this whole thing where they're obfuscating his role and making him a blogger and doing this, like, so do you? I don't know your history as far as where you've written for as a an art critic or anything like that, but like, do you feel like you still have to fight for like maybe some credibility doing a Substack like the independent model, if that makes any sense? Like where
I'm sure there you have people like the anarchist DJ or whatever who will be like, oh, this guy's got an Instagram for his Substack, but I'm like, what the fuck do I care? I'm in a role. I've kind of relished the antagonistic role. I don't need everybody to like me. I know at the end of the day that I'm right, and that the way I think is probably more interesting than these people. And I think like I don't want to like spill too much, but I've had personal interactions with Glenn Greenwald, and I'm pretty sure he feels the same way. He's very like indefatigable, and so is Tracy, by the way. Tracy literally just fucking lives to shitpost. I mean, he's a real journalist, but he really also is like that super smart, like smarmy debate club kid who is just like an amazing poster and really has it like down to an art.
Well, Tracy's interesting because I remember being like first online with this stuff and being like a Bernie bro Chapo thing, and everyone's dunking on Tracy, right? And you're kind of like, oh yeah, you're kind of, you're just like, oh yeah, this guy's, because let's be honest, like Tracy's pretty easy to make fun of in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
he's
totally.
Like, from like a nerd jock standpoint, like,
right? Oh yeah,
the
feet, the Tulsi, the Maxine Water, Maxine, like all that stuff. Yeah.
But then after a while, it's like I was like, wait, these critics of him aren't actually saying anything. All they're doing is being like, oh, bad take, bro, like that thing, and I'm like, he's actually like, he's saying the stuff that, let's be honest, like a lot of us are thinking that are at that point at least was like afraid to say it.
He's more akin to the conversations I hear at like random places in life, like where I'll just be somewhere and I'll see just two kind of working class people talking. That's more like they're talking about more of the Michael Tracy take than you would. I don't know who some like woke journalist is. I don't read them, but like something like that.
Well, like Tracy, like, so during the primary, I pretty much like, I had the feeling that something was going horribly wrong with the Bernie campaign, like kind of early, especially these feelings kind of coalesced for me at his, my wife Michelle and I went to the rally he did in Long Island City.
Oh yeah.
And that was the one where AOC announced her endorsement. She gets up and does her speech, and she's saying all this like fucking nonsense, like environmental racism, blah blah blah. And I'm like looking around being like, how the fuck are they gonna sell any of this shit to like your average voter? And then meanwhile, I kind of took a look around me and I had all these fucking DSA gaylords like with their braids and their dreadlocks, like being like, yeah, like they were more there for AOC than Bernie Sanders. And Michael Tracy was like saying a lot of this shit about the left specifically, like throughout the primary, like there's no centrality to the belief system. Like, are you guys like the case for Bernie is like a way to organize the working class along class lines, get rid of the wokeness, that kind of shit, right? But by the Tracy was pointing out, but that's not really it is. You have these BLM people, you have the anti-imperialist types. Like there's no kind of cohesiveness to what these people want. And that doesn't bode well for long-term presidential campaigns. And I was like kind of trying to suppress what he was saying, even though I knew he was right. I was like, can he please stop being such a prick?
Exactly.
And, you know, but he was like 1,000% right. And after that kind of happened, I started taking it more seriously as a journalist.
Yeah. Michael Tracy's whole persona is the Hannibal Buress gif from like the Eric Andre show where he's like, why are you booing me? I'm right. Like that's his. But like you said, he leans into it because he knows there comes a point where I tell certain people like we kind of had on the COVID stuff is like our main focus with this. And like, there's a guy, Alex Berenson on, he's been on Rogan and he's kind of speaking out on like the vaccine clinical trials and stuff like that. But he's kind of the same way where I think he knows he can't go back. Some journalists kind of like toe that line where they're like, yeah, I'm going to get into some edgy stuff here, but I still need to not burn my bridge here. But at the end of the day, that bridge is probably already burned. Because you really, it's gone. So I like the way that Greenwald leans into it. I like the way Tracy leans into it. I like the way we were talking about Alex Berenson leans into it because the libs and the left will never let you get any forgiveness for what you did. So you got to just double down.
I mean, and there's like, I've definitely burned every bridge, but what happened was like, I found an audience that is like a better audience. Like I got offered a book deal. Like, you know, we got a pretty big audience on the show and Safety Propaganda's got a shitload of fucking subscribers. And like, clearly they're, you know, you can't, there's something about like this modern version of liberalism about like likability and just like trying to square yourself into a box that kind of just like hits every single cultural mood or whatever.
Yes.
But like the cultural mood is all liquid. Like we're in liquid modernity. Like there's no sort of centrality to like the structure of the system. So why the fuck would you try and like, it's fake. Like everything's a fucking psyop. There's no point. Like I understand like financially people are probably still afraid to torch their livelihoods. But honestly, like aren't most fucking writers making like 28K, like 35K a year anyways? Like you might as well, like, I don't know. I'm a big believer in the idea that like courage is rewarded in the long term.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't think if you're trying to be an artist or any kind of creative person, then making work from this kind of standpoint of either feigned moral vanity or conformism or cowardice is just going to, you know, your legacy is going to have to live and die by that. And I think 25 years from now, when we look back on this era, we will probably read history books like journalism became a fucking psyop, fucking tabloid bullshit. And then these heroic freaks in every aspect of the media went to Substack and fucked shit up.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't think, you know, I think Substack is probably vulnerable to the same sort of like bourgeois state bullshit in the long run. But for the time being, it seems to be quite an excellent platform.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, you know, it's tough to do any kind of true free journalism, right? Like it's tough because even Substack, right? I do see a lot of people trying to regulate Substack, right? Like they're trying to, I don't know if there's any real mass movement behind it. This is just Twitter stuff that I see, but do you see Substack giving into it, or do you think Substack will ever just be like, nah, fuck it, we're the bad guys, you know? Like I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting to think that maybe like the company itself has sort of the same mentality as like the writers who have gravitated to the platform. Like maybe they have this sort of like angsty outsider thing that they want to play up. That said, just knowing how capital functions, right now it's financially beneficial to them to be in these controversies. As soon as financial interests start being encroached upon, maybe it'll change. But I think what's going to happen is like there's going to be a vacuum for it now. So as soon as like if say Substack does like take down profiles, like all of a sudden Nick Land or Moldbug get kicked off, something else is going to replace it. Like, you know, like people like these people are getting like massive audiences again. And there's obviously like a real kind of hunger for raw content. And I don't know. I mean, how can anyone even read the New York Times anymore? It's all such like horrible, scandalous trash. I mean, Guardian is fucking satanic as far as I'm concerned. Like every kind of like uber libtard like take sort of trickles downwards from Guardian, where it'll be like, what is it? Like otherkins, like otherkin, like what is that the word for people who think they're non-human or whatever?
Oh, the tree guy. Yeah, tree self. Yeah. That's I just say tree self, but otherkin. That works.
Yeah,
I was
satanic.
that was my first, like, maybe not my first, but one of the big red flags with Chomsky, where he was like, you know, he's like, yeah, I'm the manufacturing consent guy, but you got to read the New York Times, right? He's like, you got to read it for 4 hours a day to understand. And he was like very serious about this, and he kept
fucking psycho.
Yeah, he's like, you know, it's the best. You got to find out what's going on and like apply your filter and like,
and then vote, and then vote for the guy they say to vote for. You got to do that. It's just an exercise. Yeah.
So I was just like, man, something doesn't add up here. Yeah. He's like, JFK wasn't shot by the government, and it doesn't matter even if he was, and read the New York Times. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, what is the fuck? Yeah, it's just like, what's going on here?
Weird, man. Yeah.
You know, my brother had a meeting with Chomsky once. My brother's a city planner on Cape Cod, and he had some like, it's some like academic questions for Chomsky when he was still at MIT. And he went to his office, and when was this? Probably like 10 years ago. And then Chomsky black-pilled him on Israel. Because like my brother at that point was still probably just like a shit lib, you know, like he hadn't thought much about politics. But and he went there and he's supposed to ask him questions about city planning. And Chomsky's like, forget about that. How do you feel about Israel? My brother's like, I don't know. I'm Jewish. I guess I support it. Yeah. And then Chomsky's like, do you know that they're a authoritarian dictatorship? My brother was like, what? And then he was like showing them stats about Palestinians. But that being said, fuck Chomsky. The guy's role in politics is very obvious at this point.
It sucks.
I mean, he's just like he's a towering figure, of course, you know, and like respect for what he's like he's like a Jay-Z of intellectuals or something, you know. He's like,
that's a great comparison.
Yeah, he's like
he's a little soft, like no one really kind of respects him anymore, but you have to when he's in the room, kind of thing. He probably wears flip-flops, you know.
Yeah. And if you say I didn't like that last Jay-Z album, everyone's like, what? You don't like hip-hop? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of the same way. If you're like, I don't know if I like Chomsky saying vote Biden, they're like, what? Like, you think fascism's on the way? Like,
Chomsky's an anarcho-lib, though. You know, he was really, really good at defining propaganda and like showing how it works, but he was never really advocating for anything different to the system as it already exists. And I think a lot of people on the left have really kind of lionized him as this figure because he was quite courageous for a long time, and he still has a few courageous stances. He'll still like support a fucking Holocaust denier's right to speech, that he does have balls in a lot of ways, but he's also just like a paranoid old man who doesn't know how to look at what's right in front of him anymore. And as he warned about in the book, Ben recuperated back into the same propaganda machine that he defined in Manufacturing Consent.
Boom. Yeah.
I know. And that's the same thing I see with, like you said, like all, you know, Chomsky will still defend a Holocauster's right to speak, you know, or just anything. And like I saw the same kind of concept happening with Greenwald, where Greenwald was like, yeah, the people at the Capitol should still have like due process. The people that stormed the Capitol like should still have due process. People are like, what? You think these fucking animals should have this? And like, again, when they're liberals saying this, I don't get that mad. But when I say people that I probably agreed with on a lot of things a year and a half ago, I'm like, what the fuck? But then in my head, I think, okay, there are things that happened in 2020 that nobody could have prepared for. You could have read a bunch of stuff. You could have read all this stuff. But when the biggest threat I've ever seen to the working class hits us, like a COVID lockdown, you know what I mean? Or when the fucking Biden election psyop happens right in front of your eyes. And we talked about it when we had CRK on. If you can't diagnose this shit in real time, I have no interest. I don't want to hear about your 5-episode Patreon series 5 years from now about how this happened. You know, when you supported it at the time, you know, I value people like that. Chomsky can't do it in real time. Like maybe he was back in the 60s, but I don't think.
Well, that's honestly how I'm judging people now or analyzing. I'm sure you guys are the same, you know, where you're kind of like, okay, who among us is calling this shit out in real time? How long does it take for certain? Because, you know, it's okay for it to take time to figure stuff out and to grow. And
totally.
But, you know, if you're like, it's like the fucking lockdown, you know, if we're like month 14 into this whole COVID thing and you're like, wait, how this benefit big tech? Like I'm a leftist. How I don't get it, you know, like, and you're like, okay,
and why is big tech bad? I don't get it. I'm a leftist.
Yeah, like it's like
on, dude.
You have nothing to offer me.
Well, think about that CIA video.
Thank you.
Let's get
perfect
into
transition.
Yeah,
that
true podcaster right there. He's good at it.
Yeah. That shit was so beautiful, man. I really think it was like the best artwork of the last like 3 years because it hilarious. Just like everything that I've said for like years now about intersectionality just comes to life in that video. And the easiest way to pinpoint, it's never been easier to pinpoint enemies because most people are people that we can consider pals or comrades or whatever are the ones who are saying, told you this fucking libtard bullshit is just security state propaganda meant to sow dissent amongst the ranks of the working class, blah, 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 blah. And then the other people, the leftists who are lost in the copium den are posting cringe about like, they're like posting cringe about how, oh, just because the CIA has recuperated this language doesn't mean they mean it. And I'm like, bitch, do you think they're like, I don't think a CIA video is going to be like, hey, proletariat, arm yourself, kill your bosses. But, you know, they're fine. Like the diversity angle is obviously just so useful to keep people confused and alienated. Yeah. I was so happy about that video, though. And what was I had another point that I was just going to say. Oh, shit. Did you guys just watch the QAnon docuseries?
No, my parents did. I've been kind of scared to watch it.
What is it on?
It's HBO.
HBO. Oh,
well, you have my password to HBO Max, so you can.
Yeah. We were watching it. We were watching it every week. My pal Zach, the one who was on the Carl Hart episode of SOS, he's a total psyop freak. But it was really fascinating to me. And just while we're on this subject of psyops, because it was not bad, the series, especially like the behind the scenes stuff on the 8chan guys. Like these guys are fucking MK Ultra out of their mind.
It's
like,
sad. Yeah,
it's fucking psycho. But the documentary totally failed to contextualize QAnon and TrueAnon.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure.
But it failed to contextualize QAnon as like an extreme version of a tendency towards conspiratorial thinking that has become almost like hegemonic in and of itself. Like they're interviewing as their expert opinion this fucking dickweed from the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast, this guy's like talking a big game. Oh, TrueAnon, or sorry, that's such a Freudian slip.
And it's very Freudian. I like it though.
QAnon is like so bad, you know, they're all psyop. They don't know what to believe anymore. And it's like, dude, how do you feel about Russiagate? I guarantee you still believe that shit is real. Like,
yeah.
So it's made from like we're always sort of seeing these things from the same perspective, so no one is really getting like an actual kind of cultural reading of what's happening.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to my thing that we all indulge in various conspiracies to various degrees. Some of us more than others. I think us on here are on the higher end of the spectrum. But
Yeah.
but I mean,
definitely a spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the libs, like on your point on the Daily Caller, right? Yeah, the fucking they pick the lamest conspiracies. Like they always go like all in poker chips on the lame ones that aren't real. You know,
Lev Parnas. Yeah. What about Lev Parnas, Donald? Yeah,
they'll ignore like
Lev Parnas.
Yeah. They'll ignore like the 80% of cool ones that have have like a lot of like the Jonesian ones, that have tinges of truth to them. And like some of the dumbest fucking ones that are spoon fed to them by the literal CIA. It's so funny. Yeah. But it's I don't know. I need to watch that because I don't know. I'll talk with this like with my brother because he's really into conspiracies, but he's like, this QAnon shit's bullshit. And I'm like, it is in a lot of they do believe in like Trump's not the savior of like abused children. That's that one fell flat.
That's what I was gonna say is like I actually have a hot take on QAnon, which is that it might be actually a positive development in society, and not that like these motherfuckers are obviously off the deep end.
Yeah.
But it's also an expression of like a mass realization amongst people that they are being lied to
exactly
every fucking day of their lives.
I have the exact same feelings that it's like they are, they might be technically wrong, but for the right reasons, and not even that technically wrong on the bigger picture stuff. That's kind of how, right? When it like, because think about it, like a lib like Stephen Colbert will have to be like, these QAnon guys think that the people in power are abusing kids like crazy, right? He has to say that like on stage. And he's wrong, of course. They're right on that. Just for one isolated topic or incident. Yeah, but no, I agree. 100%.
Yeah, how could you say that with a fucking straight face when we like Epstein just happened? Like these people are like it's insane. Like their fucking cultural memory can't go like longer than 2 days back.
Yeah,
but I guarantee like a lot of people in TrueAnon will obviously get to the point where it just ceases, like, because there's a libidinal appeal. They're all there and they're like, oh, fuck, another Q drop, bro. Like, it's sick. It will get to the point where they'll be like, all right, none of this shit is making sense anymore.
Yeah.
Let's find something that actually has more explanatory power. I guarantee I could fucking radicalize some like Q-pilled psyoped, like alienated weirdo to class struggle way easier than I could like with someone, one of my neighbors in libtard Queens over here.
Yeah, you should just drop a safety propaganda Substack link in the Q message boards. You should just be like, hey guys, I stumbled on this. Is a little left guy. I guess I'd say maybe he's on the left. I don't know, but let's just give it an honest read. Yeah. No, I don't know the guy. Yeah. Hey, I'm just saying. But let's get to the I want to use our great Zoom technology to put the CIA video on here just so the YouTube viewers and maybe even the other listeners can listen on here. So this is from, I love when the OAN guys post them because like they get really, really fucking mad about that. But even though they were probably like pro CIA under like other Republican administrations, but it's very funny. Let's see.
Here, play it. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
When I was 17, I quoted Zora Neale Hurston's "How It Feels to Be Colored" in my college application essay. The line that spoke to me stated simply, I am not tragically colored. There is no sorrow burned up in my soul nor lurking behind my eyes. I do not mind at all. At 17, I had no idea what life would bring, but Sora's sentiment articulated so beautifully how I felt as a daughter of immigrants then and now.
Soros sentiment, that's what I heard.
More like Soros.
I am perfectly made. I can wax eloquent on complex legal issues in English, while also belting Guayaquil de mis amores in Spanish.
My God.
It's so good.
It's really good.
Console a
It's
crying
what my
toddler with
friend
the
Barrett
other.
Avner calls
I'm a woman of
transcendental
color.
cringe.
I
Yeah.
am a mom. I am a cisgender millennial who's been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. I am intersectional.
I'm a mentally ill
but my
cisgender
existence
woman.
I
is
am
not a box-checking
intersectional.
exercise. I am a walking declaration. A woman
Oh
whose
my
inflection
God.
does not rise at the end of her sentences,
Such
suggesting
a
that a question has been
fucking
It's
asked.
great.
I did
psyop.
not sneak into CIA. My employment
John
was not
McCain!
is
John
not the
John
result of a
McCain!
fluke or slip
Yeah,
through the
woke
cracks.
lord John
I earned my
McCain.
way in, and I earned my way up
pay
the
my
ranks of
servants.
this organization.
Yeah.
I am
Minimum
educated,
wage.
qualified, and competent. And
Sorry, real
sometimes
fast. I prefer soldiers that don't get caught. That's all I'm saying.
I struggle.
Facts.
I struggle feeling like I could do more, be more to my two sons, and I struggle leaving the office when I feel there's so much more to do. I used to struggle with imposter syndrome, but at 36, I refuse to internalize misguided patriarchal ideas of what a
Oh
woman
my
can
God.
or should be. I am tired of feeling like I'm supposed to apologize for the space I occupy rather than intoxicate people with my effort, my brilliance. I am proud of me.
You know, everybody's
Full stop.
rolling their fucking eyes
My
around the
parents
office like,
left
God
everything
damn.
they
Leave it
knew
to the
and
CIA
loved
to just
expose me
totally
to
fuck this
opportunities
up,
they
like,
never
royally. It's too
Because
transparent.
of them, I stand here today a proud first-generation Latina and officer at CIA. I am
Pretty soon,
unapologetically me. I want you to be unapologetically you, whoever you are. Know your worth. Command your
Just
space.
just the absolute fucking blood boiling, just a Latina working for the CIA.
It'd be really funny if they still handed her
That-
a mop and a bucket at the end of the skit. Like they just handed it. They're like, get to
Yeah.
work. Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that's like a South Park fucking
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
like pretty
wet floor
soon
sign.
Yeah.
pretty soon she's gonna be offering her intersectional brain power to silence the patriarchal rage of like some labor uprising in Guatemala
Yeah,
or
exactly.
something. She'll be like, let
Exactly.
me get rid of these patriarchs and then have like
Yeah.
some CIA death squad
Yeah.
eradicate them from
Exactly.
the earth.
We got to protect
Yeah.
Coca-Cola down here is what we have to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
They have
I-
a good supply of lithium. I
yeah. Yeah. Elon Musk shit. Yeah. They should have had like Charlotte Clymer come in and hug her. Just
Yeah.
like, oh, come here. And,
But it's not. Yeah. But the CIA thing, it's not these leftoids don't understand it because they're not just adopting this language. This is the real red pill, black pill. They're not just adopting it unironically and that it's used in a negative sense. They started this shit. They fucking spearheaded this whole thing for like 7 decades. They've been doing this. You know who red pilled me on the CIA with all these like cultural social movements is Jonathan Latham, the biologist we had on.
Yeah,
Shout
I
out
watched
Jonathan.
that.
And oh cool,
He's
you
fucking
listened. Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
Well, he is the furthest thing from like a reactionary MRA type. He's like extremely left, in a lot of ways, and so I would say more than what's being culturally offered today. And in whatever sense, I don't want to define him or anything, but he's into it. But he's like, yeah, like Gloria Steinem was like a CIA prop, right? And I'm like,
Oh,
wait,
for
what?
sure.
I was
Yeah.
like, what? I didn't know. I was like, I thought I knew some shit, and I was like, for a while I was like, I don't know, man, like this is a little weird, and I looked
Yeah.
into it, and like, yeah, she's like John Krasinski from The Office, like that vibe, the whole like,
Yep.
yeah, they do good work, what's the big deal?
Especially the libtard feminists, like all of them were pretty much spooks. But I mean,
Dude,
like,
yeah.
he keeps coming up, but Zach, same guy.
Right.
He's a noise musician, but he's also written a lot. He's ghostwritten a lot of critical theory for Urbanomic, which publishes like Nick Land and Reza Ghassani and stuff like that.
Heard.
I have to finish this book by May 31st. And then I have a novel outlined, but him and I are going to be collaborating on a book together. You guys will fucking love this shit. It's going to be tracking all the famous avant-garde artists who had intelligence connections.
Let's go.
Because if
Like-
you start, yeah, dude.
Like
Jim
that's-
Morrison.
going-
Jim Morrison. Let's go. I'm ready.
And like
Yep.
you're talking like Jackson Pollock vibe too, kind of thing.
Jackson
right?
Pollock
Yeah.
like had an actual contract with the CIA. Like it was direct. Like the
Should have done a commercial with him.
believed-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the CIA believed abstract expressionism was a way that they could like they could use it as propaganda because it was they're trying to show like this could only come from the American freedom spirit opposed to this like rigid Soviet art that was happening at the time.
Yeah.
But even people like a writer I love, like Philip K. Dick, there's this fantastic interview with him that happened on a French TV channel. And it first starts pretty innocuous and shit. And he's talking about how good the French have been to him. And like the French were first people to take him seriously as an artist and not just a sci-fi writer.
Yeah.
But then the conversation goes to COINTELPRO. Yeah. And he starts saying, oh, you know, all through the late 60s, I lived in paranoia and fear. And once 1972 happened and COINTELPRO Act got abolished, I felt that fear go away. But in my mind, I know all the rumors about him. So I know the real reason that anxiety went away is the fucking CIA flipped Philip K. Dick. Damn. Which makes sense when you look at his work, because that's when he published like Man in the High Castle, which is total propaganda for bourgeois democracy. Like so much of the shit we love has been fucking psyoping our brains to the right wing our whole lives.
Fucking Philip K. Lib.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
L Dick. Yeah. I reread Ubik because when you tweeted about it.
Oh,
I was like,
amazing.
Yeah, that's such a crazy ass book, dude. Yeah,
dude,
I gotta read that.
It's one of the most surreal novels ever written.
It's one of the ones where you read it and you immediately want to reread it. You're like, wait, what the fuck?
Absolutely. Yeah, I hadn't read it in a long time, and it really kind of blew my mind how good it is, because you kind of read him when you're a kid if you like sci-fi or whatever, but then you get older and you realize he's as good as anyone was in the 20th century.
Well, I got more into sci-fi stuff like later on.
Me too. Yeah.
And so but yeah, you can tell. Well, it is weird. He's one of those artists that has been, all his works have been co-opted by like literally Amazon and all these crazy corporations, but it still slaps, you know. That's the weird.
Totally.
You know? Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah.
But with the CIA thing, it's funny because the left response I've been seeing, like the irony left response I've been seeing is because there's like shit lib responses that were just basic, like it was to a Michael Tracy tweet. I don't even remember what like Michael Tracy tweeted, but I think he was basically saying the argument. Okay, Michael Tracy here says the argument will of course be made that the CIA is only espousing woke ideology as a cynical ploy, not because the ideology serves to entrench the CIA's power, just like every other corporation and hegemonic cultural political institution, all just one big coincidence. And that just like set Twitter on fire today. And but the left response is always just like, it's bad now because it's woke. It's like, dude, it's always bad and you like it now. That's the problem. You're fine with it now. It worked on you. The CIA is never right. The CIA is never right. I never trust the CIA. And you could tell the CIA could tell me the sky is blue. It's fucking green in my eyes. I'm just not going to trust them. So it's like, tell on yourself because it worked on you. That you love the commercial. You love the commercial. You're fucking Latinx.
Dude. Well, you're talking about the Tom Morello response.
Yes, and I'm going to put it up. I'm going to put it up on the big screen. I was talking about just regular leftists because they were just kind of doing some ironic detachment with it, where they were kind of saying like, "Oh yeah, wow, so bad. Just found out today the CIA is bad," and like you're like, no, you think it's good. I'm reading through that shit because I used to do that shit too.
Right. They start lighting up the copium.
Exactly. And so this is the Tom Morello response, which kill your heroes, everybody. Kill your fucking heroes. That's all I'm gonna say. I grew up a fucking Rage Against the Machine stan. And Tom Morello says, silly me, I thought the CIA was evil because of the 70 years of war crimes, assassinating heads of state, torture, and crushing people's movements around the globe. And it turns out that the real problem was a woke pamphlet. And it's like, he's not wrong about any of that. Any of that stuff at the front, he's not wrong about that, but he's fine with it now.
Well, the problem is, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think you have a better thought than I do at this moment. Yeah.
Well, he's totally misreading what Tracy said. Tracy's not saying that the pamphlet is the worst thing they ever did. He's saying the pamphlet is the aesthetic shield, the rhetorical signifier that they use to now legitimize the crimes and the corruption of the deep state. Like, And that's what they always do. These people refuse to understand that the politics. I mean, Tom Morello, he's always been a total retard, but and I could get into like why anarchists seem to always just fall on the side of libs
Please
throughout
do.
the,
Yeah.
as life goes on. But Tom Morello, he doesn't want to reconcile with the fact that his politics are maybe not as radical or threatening to the state.
Yeah.
And that's just basically what it is. Michael Tracy isn't saying that the commercial is like an evil act. He's just saying it's branding for the evil acts, and it was created by leftists who are now functionally indistinguishable from that which they oppose.
Yeah, and he puts Tom Morello's. He thinks Tracy. He's trying to put him in the Republican bro box. Be like, oh, this guy just hates woke shit, and it's like he's definitely more nuanced than that, And
totally,
yeah, and it's like,
but they're not. So that's the thing.
Yes.
Like they're not more nuanced than that. So them and the people who follow Tom Morello, and like it's funny when you look at Tom Morello's mentions and like I don't know, this is gonna be fucked up the way I say it, but like I'll see like he'll be like Donald Trump babbling baby dick blah, 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 stupid brain, like just how people tweet about Trump. He'll be doing dumb shit like that and have posted like a shitty Jim Carrey painting of like Donald Trump, and then you'll see like in the mentions everyone with all these wave emojis, like resist emojis, are like Tom the best, Rage Against Machines, kill fascists, and then you'll see like a bunch of right-wing accounts where when you click show more replies, it'll be like faggot. It's like, well shit, and I'm reading that verbatim, sorry, like it's just
they always kind of win at the end because their shit's just funnier.
Is Zach any better? Yeah. Is Zach any better these days? Or I know he's not like
Zach De La Rocha.
Yeah, but is he any better?
I mean,
than Tom? Like,
he's probably less cringe because he's in the media less. But they all kind of had reductive anarchist politics. And this is something one thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. I think we talked about this on our last episode with Gay Stepdad, because a lot of people don't know that Ben and I have like a pretty sharp diversion in our politics after like the first few agreements. Because I think a lot of the post left kind of like the people that got hit with this label or whatever, there's like one faction of it that is probably could be described as like left communist or ortho Marxist, and then the other half is like almost like a paleo conservative social democracy kind of thing. And I've noticed this more and more as it goes on, because like you make these new friends based on this like shared critique of this thing. But I've noticed with a lot of these like the PaleoCon, like the good old boys, I love their show and everything. Great. But a lot of their politics is predicated on this basically false notion that economic development can be meaningfully rewinded somehow, that you can kind of bring back this older, more stable version of American democracy.
Do you mean like more of a blue collar centered kind of thing? Like kind of like
localism and
why doesn't that work? Why doesn't that work?
Because once the economy develops a certain way, think about certain developments: the feminization of the workforce, women joining the workforce, the concentration of capital in fewer pockets, the hardening of the bourgeois state. There's just never been a time meaningfully in history where you could organize and like rewind that back. It always is kind of just, and a lot of people reject what I'm saying right now, but this is basically like my main disagreement with that, and why I think that I don't think like a revolution is going to happen in my lifetime or anything, but that is still the thing that has to be like, I think, the end point in a lot of ways. I don't think there could be, at this point in our stage of capital development, a lot of redistributive policy won through sort of bourgeois electoral politics. Yeah. And I think I think in a lot of ways it's very idealistic almost as idealistic as the shit the leftists say, to think that it could.
Yeah, I largely agree with that. I think it's kind of a conflating. It's fine to have to dream of a past time and be like, oh, that'd be better, versus saying like this is actually feasible to put this back in the Pandora's box kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
We need things to evolve. Yeah,
and I don't even know how I got on this point really.
No, you were saying it was what you were trying to reference your podcast episode with Gay Stepdad, and we were talking about Tom Morello and
right, yes, because we talked about anarchism.
Yes.
All right, so this is like, you know, at times of like historical, political, economic upheaval, there's usually these sorts of new tendencies towards idealism. You know, if you just do this, and this thing, things will get better. But it just doesn't really work like that. The problem with anarchists is their whole fucking thing is idealism and utopianism. Like, anarchists don't really even acknowledge political economy. And if you read like how, like, there's this great clip, like Bill Maher, total shit lib and a piece of shit, but sometimes very good at calling bullshit, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And he interviewed Tom Morello a couple of years ago. And Tom Morello is like, anarchism, we're going to build communes. We don't need a government. We don't need a state. We don't need centralized power. And then Bill Maher was just like, then why the fuck do you keep voting? Like, if you believe, like, what Bill Maher is basically trying to say is like, fuck you, you piece. I see what you're doing. You're the same as me, but you wear like different fucking hats, you know? You have the same politics as I do.
Yeah.
So Tom Morello is an anarchist, and anarchists from the very beginning of Marxist theory have had major diversion points. Like, the founding father of what we now call left anarchism is Bakunin. And he had really no theories about the development of the working class, which is and has to be a byproduct of the development of capitalism itself. His whole thing was you just build a team of allies and what did he call them? Not allies, but like, but basically it was like an ideological revolution won by people who share your belief system. But with that, when you think it's just a matter of belief, then your politics become very chaotic and incoherent. So like, say what I know about revolution, for instance, is like Marx even says, like, in the manifesto, commies should not be leftists. You know, they shouldn't be too far left, especially at times when the working class is disenfranchised and isn't organized. At times when the working class is radicalized and is organized, then the communists are like, whatever, they're supposed to come together with the other leftists and just like take up arms and start killing the state, start killing the bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you're supposed to be like I try to approach politics in a measured and a kind of balanced way, perceive what's right in front of me. But people like Tom Morello, they have this thing of like anarchists are always the ones like the Weather Underground in the 60s. They end up committing acts of terror, planning assassinations, or they're in such a perpetual state of emotional sort of disrepair that they get really freaked out by certain like political developments, a la Donald Trump, and start going the other way and just slide right back into bourgeois politics. Yeah. So like, honestly, like, this is why I fucking like all leftists now are basically anarchists or like Fabian anarchists. And the Fabian, like, just Google Fabians or like link to it. That's what DSA is. It's like, it's like this very bourgeois form of like social control, won through like minute progressive policy. But class struggle has to be, it has to be like a natural kind of progression of history.
Yeah.
But it also has to be like a calm and rational response to political changes, and how to understand political economy in a way that is actually beneficial to the points in history where there is some sort of like radical energy.
Yeah.
But what happened with Tom Morello, and I'm kind of rambling here. I
right.
apologize about that.
Nah, come on.
But like, Tom Morello is an anarchist. He has no fucking way to understand what's happening in our politics because he doesn't have that like rooted understanding of political economy.
Yeah.
And he has just like really kind of embraced his role as like a foot soldier for the bourgeois state and American imperialism. And that's why he's so particularly cringe.
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, he was kind of like a STEM kid growing up too, wasn't he? Like, wasn't he like a big like Harvard guy? Like, kind of like
he was like a Harvard sociologist kind of dude. And,
yeah,
and he's one of those guys that always reps that too, or people rep it for him. Be like, oh, you're criticizing Tom. Did you know that he's actually got like a PhD in his? And I was like, big red flag for me.
Yeah,
you know?
and then he's like, did you know nerds could play guitar? And watch, I can do the levers. I can do all that, man. I'm like, and I like, no joke. I loved all that shit. I couldn't see through it for the longest time. I loved Rage Against the Machine. I grew up.
Rage is dope. Yeah.
I still like him.
I fucking love Rage Against the Machine. Like, so it's just like,
I got respect for him as a guitarist too. And he's cool. He's like an anti-gearhead. He just plays whatever the fuck shitty guitar, which I think is, cool, a lot of times. And just likes to, go for the feeling kind of thing.
He's not like the fucking Edge. He's not like the Edge and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My friend who's in a noise band, Tom Morello, came to one of his shows in like 2008 and was standing in the audience, and Tom Morello just hated everything that he was hearing so much, I guess. Like, he was standing in the audience like this the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like two of the band, like a lot of noise bands use like super fascist aesthetics,
Right.
So he was just like enraged and about like, he was like, what the fuck? They're not even raging against the machine or whatever. But no, like, I liked Rage when I was a kid. I almost saw them with Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh, fuck.
In 1997.
Damn.
But the show got canceled. I was like 10 years old and my dad was going to take me.
Yeah.
Bass dad. Nice.
Yeah, no, my dad took me to a lot of shows when I was a kid, but
dope.
I got like into like metal, like black metal and noise and stuff pretty early, but I still pop on Rage once in a while when I'm working out. They're good at like sloganeering kind of, because they kind of sound like Public Enemy, but they're just like playing with instruments.
So the deep state heard that conversation, then talked to Zoom headquarters. I'm in Silicon Valley. I thought it was an easy clip. I got to be more secure, maybe operate from a VPN. That's why our Zoom meeting just collapsed there. Can't believe it.
Yeah, man. They're trying to recruit me. That's why.
It's what it is.
Like, I would be such an effective intelligence asset, like, because like, I feel like the best intelligence assets are the ones who can identify like intelligence assets very well, like William S. Burroughs. So if the CIA is listening, I am very amenable to taking the PSYOP route towards success, I must say.
You heard how much would it cost for you? Seriously, I've always wondered
to be an intelligence asset.
Yeah. To run a PSY, basically be a huge aid in the PSYOP. What would it cost?
Yeah, I'm like so conflicted about this because it's like not even about the money so much as it just be like fascinating to see how it works from the inside,
Yeah, Hunter S. Thompson kind of,
if they could secure my name in history books as a legend, then I might be amenable to it. Like because all these guys that we're talking about, Philip K. Dick, William S. Burroughs, yes, there's whispered rumors about their connections to the CIA, but that's not the main thing they're remembered for. They're remembered as being great artists. So if I could like have like 100 years from now, people remember like, oh, Adam Lehrer, that guy was a fucking genius. did you hear he might be an intelligence asset? I could live with that, you
It'll all
know?
be worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. Damn. And for me, it's a strict money amount. Has nothing like no, you could smear me. Like I'm trying to find that money amount where it's like they're like, yeah, and this guy the worst. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And then
I think I tweeted like a couple weeks ago, like, oh my God, I feel so psyoped right now. Like I'm worried that my own show's a psyop. Like, especially like because I don't know. I feel like we're at this point, like just this super liquid digital landscape. Like everything is fake, and that's why like I like people to remember, like, I'm not saying like Twitter sphere, it's not unimportant. Like it's where ideology is produced and sort of influenced and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, you have to remember to have a real fucking life too. Like, because we're all terminally online at a certain point, but there is like terminally online. And I'm sure we could like point to some people who suffer from that syndrome, because at the end of the day, like that's why I don't care that people talk shit about me so much. It's like I have a nice life, you know, I got a nice wife, a dog, like the fuck do I care, you know? But if you're like totally jacked into the internet, becoming a psyop, living the psyop, then like material reality itself starts to just bury itself into your fucking screen along with everything else.
I hear that, definitely. And so just I mean, if you want to just get some plugs in before we wrap up, it was a really good conversation. I'll just plug it. Listen to the last, specifically, if you're going to listen to one episode of System of System, listen to the one with Gay Stepdad. If you like this show, you know Gay Stepdad. So it's a good intro anyways. And
and plus we kind of, what's good about that is we started to kind of address like the ideological conflict within the post-left itself, because I think it's something that has probably been there since the beginning as this thing got hit with, but has mostly been left undiscussed. So I think that's kind of helpful. Yeah, definitely. So Safety Propaganda Substack, right? Got that going. You're working on some other stuff. Yeah, I know you got some other stuff going on. And you're welcome on the show anytime, man. Anytime you got some hot takes, just we're a Zoom call away. Yeah, absolutely, guys. This was a lot of fun as always, and let's stay in touch.
Absolutely, right on, Adam. I appreciate you. We're at Rare Candy Pod 1. What's your Twitter, by the way? Where are you operating from, Adam?
Just at Safety Propaganda 1. My regular Twitter got axed.
Nuked.
Yeah. I think I texted, but you were one of those accounts that I only bookmark tweets when I'm like, oh, I want to check out that movie later or that album or whatever. And like, I feel like 60% of them were just your old tweets, and now I can't. Now they're gone. You know, I'm like, fuck. There's gold mines in there. Yeah. So keep tweeting that stuff. Recommendations from the new
Safety
account.
Propaganda.
I will.
So I'm at Glenn Rockney. He's at Crypto Sci. Thanks to everybody who's been listening. Subscribe on YouTube. YouTube's still the best way to watch it. I know not everybody could do that, but the audio will suffice as well. And this is Rare Candy. Right on, Adam. All right, guys.
Later, guys.
All right, have a good night.